to a truly revolutionary episode of QI. Rising up in revolt this week, we have 4 recalcitrant renegades, the Radicals, Susan Calman. The rebellious Jessica Fostekew. The rabble-rousing Gyles Brandreth. And he's an absolute riot, it's Alan Davis. Buzzers are really revolutionary. Susan goes.
Nice.
Jessica goes.
Yeah.
Like that?
That's
I think
a banger.
that's rather fine. Gyles, a bit of a headbanger, maybe.
I recognise this. It's one of my favourites. It's the Sex Pistols.
Yes.
And once in the 1980s, I met... It's true, I met Johnny Rotten.
Did you?
At the Midland Hotel, Manchester. I went up to him and I said, "Oh, Mr. Rotten, I'm so delighted to meet you." And he said to me, "Fuck off."
There's literally nothing I could say to you wouldn't have an anecdote. Alan goes. Here's question 1. Stop me when you know what these names are for. OK. Patriotic Shortener, Silence Mill, Regretful... Yes, Jess!
Silence Mills, the nickname I gave to my worst ever Edinburgh show.
I hate that. It's like tumbleweed, isn't it?
We punks will remember a band called Silence Mill.
OK.
Charlie Seesaw, that could be a racehorse.
I like the necktie of Capet.
They all sound like ailments or afflictions.
OK, so I'm going to help you that we have translated all of these. They were originally in French. And there was a sound effect that went with each one of them.
Guillotine.
Yeah.
Guillotine.
Guillotine.
Guillotine. I don't want to not get the point on a matter of admin.
So in French, they were absolutely fantastic. The patriotic shortener was Raccourcement Patriotique, Silence Mill Moulin à Silence, and the regretful climb Mont à Regret. All nicknames for the guillotine used in the French Revolution. Yes, you met the man who invented... I remember it well. I was in Paris.
He told me to fuck off.
I do have a personal interest in the subject as it happens.
Oh, why is that, my
But
darling?
before I get to that...
Yes.
Let me tell you what little I know about the guillotine.
The guillotine.
Le guillotine.
Yes.
Do we get bonus points for this information, or am I just wasting time? My recollection is...
Yes. But we're going back a bit. It's the French Revolution.
It's the French Revolution. It's the French Revolution. But when I was at university, one of my subjects was the French Revolution.
Ooh, right.
And as I remember, the guillotine was named after a man called Guillotine, and he wanted a nicer way of killing the enemies of the revolution.
Right.
And so he was actually meaning it in a kind way.
Yeah.
So I think that's who Guillotine was.
Yeah.
But I know it went on for years and years and years, because in 1977, I went to Paris for the last use of the guillotine.
And this is your personal interest?
I was a campaigner against capital punishment.
Ah.
I went with a group, because we couldn't believe it, to protest.
Right.
This was still going on.
I know. Well, did you have T-shirts that said, "Quit while you're ahead"?
Can I say, I was at university in the 1960s, so this is a long time ago, but in 1968, obviously, I was in Paris trying to foment, in my pre-punk period, the revolution in France at the time.
When I was at university, I was simply trying to get laid. I'll be very honest. I wore lots of corduroy and tried to look intelligent. But sadly, the ruse did not work.
Corduroy, that'll do it for you. I had one of those sweaters with leather patches on the elbows,
nice.
a little pipe. I thought it looked good. Anyway, so it was named after Dr. Guillotine, and in fact his family hated this association with the name, and they constantly petitioned the French government saying, please call it something else, please call it something else. And in the end they changed their name because they got so fed up with it.
Perhaps it was Gillette.
Yes. There is a rumour that he was killed by his own apparatus. It is not true. In fact, he died from an infection on a carbuncle on his shoulder. So, I know that.
What's a carbuncle?
It's not pleasant. Don't get one.
Well, a nice carbuncle at the end of the night, though, that can warm up.
That's possibly the most tragic thing you've ever said.
Got a lift home, we can have a carbuncle.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you're trying to get laid, is that right?
So the person who did the very first guillotining, he was Louis XVI's executioner. He was a man by the name of Gyles Henri Sanson. He was the fourth out of 6 generations of executioner. He executed nearly 3,000 people. He was a celebrity because he was France's executioner. And his uniform that he used to wear, which was sort of striped trousers and fancy hat and an overcoat, became a very fashionable look for men. What do you think women might have worn to celebrate?
Corduroy.
Women wore guillotine-shaped earrings. Oh, and what sort of unpleasant? That's the king and queen's head below.
Oh.
So, that's weird, right?
I think I might quite like them.
Yeah. They do well at Topshop.
Yeah. Anyway, he was supposed to pass on the job to his eldest son, Gabriel. Gabriel died, unfortunately, while he was helping his father with an execution. He slipped on some blood and fell off the scaffold.
Oh! They didn't feature any of this in Carry On, Up the French Revolution. A wonderful film with Kenneth Williams as Le Grand Fromage.
Yes.
Grand Fromage. Oh, I want to watch that again now. You never see them anymore. They used to be on all the time.
No, they're on ITV2. If you watch television in the afternoon, if you've got no job, self-employed, sorry, if you're self-employed...
They do some wonderful programmes.
Do they?
And I do the voiceover for one of the commercials.
Oh, well, it's worth watching just for that.
It is. It's actually... I love doing it. I'm the voice now of the Tenor Flex Plus Super Soft Incontinence Pad.
Someone's got to do it, Giles.
It tells us something about the ITV2 audience, I think.
Yes.
And the joy is you can watch all the Carry On films right through the afternoon and evening without needing to leave the sofa.
So the executioner, because his son had died falling off the scaffold, he passed the job to his second son, who was called Henri Clément. He disgraced the family, I'm afraid. He had an aversion to blood, and then he had serious gambling debts, and he eventually pawned off the guillotine to pay off his debts. And he turned up at the next execution with an axe, pretty much saying, will this do? So they fired him, and the Ministry of Justice had to buy the guillotine back from... I know. Who is the woman associated with the French Revolution?
Madame Tussaud, because she took facial masks, didn't she? Death masks of the people.
It's an extraordinary story because she was the art teacher and indeed a waxworks modeller for the sister of Louis XVI. And so she was seen to be a royalist and her head was actually shaved in preparation for execution. And she was saved by a leading revolutionary who had been friendly with her before. And she was made to do the people's likenesses. And then she was asked to come to Britain to show them and was going to go back to France but had to stay because the Napoleonic Wars started and she wasn't able to return.
Who are these two?
So this is the King and Queen.
Those are actually the King and Queen of France.
It's Marie Antoinette and the King, yeah.
Or the waxworks of them.
The waxworks of them.
Yes.
I used to work in Madame Tussauds.
Oh, this is marvellous. Somebody who can out-anecdote Giles. I like this.
I worked as a zombie because my acting career got off to a really quick start. And you had to learn how to put all different latex on stuff and make your makeup really awful to be jumping out at people in this scary maze. But you learnt to wax, which was to stand where tourists were walking past you and you'd stay completely still and then just move a bit and people would cack themselves. And I got told after my second stint there that I was the scariest woman they'd ever had.
Now, Giles, I thought when you said you have personal experience of this that you were going to mention
I am going to mention
family connection.
This, seriously, is how I became really interested in this subject of the guillotine and executions. Because my forebear, Jeremiah Brandreth, was a revolutionary and the last person to be beheaded in this country for treason.
I think we have a picture, actually, of Jeremiah.
There he is.
Part of the Pentrick marches.
1817. He was a revolutionary. He began as a Luddite. He realised that the Industrial Revolution was going to make people lose their jobs. He was determined to overthrow the government of the day. And anyway, he led this revolution up in Derbyshire. He was known as the Nottingham Captain and was arrested, put on trial, and was not just hanged, but he was then beheaded.
Yes.
Because he was a traitor.
Because they wanted to show the head. I mean, I think he was already dead by the time he was beheaded. Now, we were trying to see the family likeness in this, so we've done a little bit of photoshopping just to see how that would look. So there you are.
Uncanny.
Uncanny. I do think, darling, if you were ever beheaded, just as they lifted the head up, you'd be going, I've got one more story.
You know, the head can live on for another 15 seconds.
All good revolutions start with a bit of rioting, but how can you cause a riot with a clown hat, some vodka and a lump of cheese?
Is it to take them as a gift at the marriage of your ex?
That would be very
Is it a circus riot?
Well, there are three separate riots, in fact. The one with the clown hat, so it was 1850s. You're talking about very tough town.
Must be a Russian circus.
No, it's Toronto.
Oh, really?
So when Toronto started, so we're talking about the 1850s, there was a population of 30,000 people, not very many. There were 152 taverns, there were 203 beer halls, and there were roughly, we don't really know, 140 brothels. So it was quite the place for gentlemen to misbehave. And in 1855, a riot began after a fireman, a drunk fireman, knocked off a clown's hat in one of the city's brothels. And when he refused to pick it up...
A couple of trapeze artists swung in.
Well, they started a complete riot, and it went on for days. Clowns fighting firemen. Circus tents were torn down.
Firemen have got hoses, and the clowns have just got a bucket of...
I know, but they kept getting in a car, and there was loads of them. The wagons were set on fire of the circus by the firemen. I mean, it was one of the most extraordinary things. By the time it was all finished, the whole of the Toronto police system had to be overhauled, and they established what they basically the one that they have now. But it was days of fighting between clowns and firemen.
Wow.
I know, it's fantastic. So what about the cheese?
Oh, it's not the same event?
No, they're different events.
Oh, I thought maybe it was a sort of vodka and cheese evening at the
Yes,
brothel.
yes, I did.
It's rather a niche brothel, isn't it? Come in, vodka, cheese, bring the clowns
They do
in.
that cheese... They do the cheese rolling. Does that ever get out of hand?
Well, it did. So there's been lots of food riots.
Oh, of course they have. So this will be to do with the price of cheese?
Yes,
the price of vodka?
Well, if you think about the French Revolution, that was instigated by the women in the market over the price of bread. This is the Great Nottingham Cheese Riot. It's just a great name, isn't it? The Great Nottingham Cheese Riot of 1766. They felt overcharged for cheese. They seized the cheese, and you're quite right, Giles.
They seized the cheese.
Seized the cheese.
Seize the cheese!
Seize the cheese!
He sees the cheese! Seize him!
And they rolled them down the street because, of course, they were big cheese wheels. They used to come in enormous things like this. And the mayor tried to quell the violence and was knocked out by a particularly large cheese and severely concussed. So it was the Great Nottingham Cheese Riot. The vodka, so this started really as a vodka boycott. In 1858, the Russians did a tax hike and it tripled the price. So it went up to 10 rubles a bucket, is how they used to buy it.
Wait.
The average clerk made 25 rubles a year. So they were not able to buy this. And the vodka tax was the main source of revenue, and people just decided, I can't afford it, so I'm not going to do it. And so temperance societies started all over the country, and people took oaths of sobriety, and this was a nightmare for the government because they needed the money from the tax. Vodka started being given away free to try and persuade people to be a little bit more alcoholic so that eventually they would start paying for it. Rebels who didn't want the vodka tax were made to drink vodka forcibly with a funnel was put down their throat. I mean, it was extraordinary. Eventually, the revolt was crushed and the government banned temperance societies. It was forbidden to want to be sober.
That's triggered me, actually, because as a
it?
teenager, I once snorted vodka.
How does one do that?
With a straw.
Up your
in your
nostril?
nose.
Up your nose?
And then you cry it out of your eyes. I grew up in the West Country, so we didn't have much to do.
Sounds like you had plenty.
Yeah. Now, what would you have to do if someone read you the Riot Act?
It's an actual thing. They would go to the scene and read the Riot Act.
They literally read it out. Technically, you had an hour to disperse.
Right.
Once it had been read out. So it was introduced in 1715.
To clear crowds.
To clear the crowds out. These are the actual words of the Riot Act. And it meant that if more than 12 people gathered and were disruptive, a policeman was entitled to read them the Riot Act. And it had to be read with the exact correct wording. And after that, they had a full hour. You've got an hour now to stop rioting, which I quite like. It's very British, isn't it? I'm giving you notice, and then you'll be on the naughty step. We don't have it anymore. It was repealed by the Criminal Law Act of 1967. In fact, the last attempted reading of the Riot Act was in, have a guess, anybody? Which city in this country?
Manchester.
Glasgow.
Oh.
1919, but the policeman couldn't get through it before somebody took the page from his hand.
Sorry, Sandy. Everyone just stop. Was that a Scottish accent you just...
No, it was an Irishman visiting.
To be fair, I respect the law as much as the next person.
Yes.
If I had decided I was going to make the positive action of rioting and someone stood in front of me and said, here's a piece of paper about why you can't riot, you would just go, well, I'm taking that piece of paper. I'm a rioter, wouldn't you? I mean, and I don't think that's particularly Glasgow. If I may, Alan.
Order in the court.
If they don't disperse, they don't just go, oh, they haven't.
Yeah. Oh.
What I was going to say...
He's right.
...was contrary to sometimes, occasionally, when you said... And I knew you were going to say Glasgow, because you looked at me with that look. You look at Sandra. You look at me sometimes and go,
Sandra.
there's a Scottish thing coming up. Just because it was Glasgow does not mean that they were violent in
I
removing
didn't
the
say
paper.
that. I never
they
said
simply
that.
politely went, I'll take that from you, young sir.
Yes.
I imagine. Said, excuse me, officer, can I take that?
I'll take that. Would you like a mint?
Exactly. So I don't want there to be any suggestion that the Glaswegians were aggressive.
But
excuse me!
Nowadays, you don't have to read anything out at all. If 12 people or more are present and they cause any kind of violence, then...
It's quite challenging for middle-class people to start riots, as I've discovered.
Well, you've got to wait in. You've got to wait in for your white company order. I mean... It's an awful lot to do.
Yeah.
In Paris, when I was trying to take part in the 1968 riots, we didn't know what to do. And, well, no, we didn't, because we were nice university people. We'd gone over to help with the rioting.
And they were instructing in French.
Well, I was studying the French Revolution, so my French was reasonably OK. And they advised us what we were to do. And it was to knock the policeman's hat off. And apparently, knocking hats off goes back hundreds of years as the way riots are started, as in the case with your clown, knocking the famous, in the 1920s, was there...
The Straw Hat Riots.
The Straw Hat Riots. Oh. Was that in New York, Philadelphia, somewhere?
New York.
In America, where, because it was a fashion thing.
Yeah.
Autumn has come, you've got to wear a felt hat.
Yeah.
People were still wearing their straw hats, knock it off. So policemen's helmets off, clowns' hats off, straw hats off.
I think, to be fair, if I had gone to the effort of wearing one of my hats, of which I have many, because I believe a lady with a hat is a very astonishing figure.
Is it made of corduroy?
The list of impediments to you getting shagged goes on.
It's not good, is it?
A suit a hat, like a suit a hat, and sometimes you think, it's a hat day. I feel like wearing a hat. I'm going to wear a cowboy hat, I'm going to wear a top hat, I'm going to wear a bowler hat. And you're walking down the street, you're thinking, people are laughing at me. But I don't care. In myself, I have the confidence. I've worked on myself a lot. This is how I feel. I feel confident. I'm a powerful woman. I'm Claire Balding.
People looking for...
I'm there.
People going, how's that
And then
cowboy hat
somebody-
moving by itself? How's it getting down the street? There must be a dog under there, a tiny dog. That dog's never going to get shagged wearing that.
OK. We're moving on. We are moving on. Now, here's another kind of revolution. Why doesn't your house have revolving doors? Yes, my darling Gyles.
My house does have a revolving door. It always has. It's a family house. It's a tradition.
Yes.
Because one of my forebears invented the revolving door.
I happen to know who invented the revolving door?
Theophilus
Yes,
Van
Cannell. Is that...
Who married the daughter of my great-great-great-grandfather, a man called Dr. Benjamin Brandreth, who invented Brandreth's pills, was a pioneer of medicine and advertising in 19th century
It's not so much
America.
a family tree as a family fucking forest.
You're related to Theophilus Van Cannell.
Of course he is.
Dr. Brandreth had 13 children, including 10 daughters.
Yeah.
And he was hugely wealthy, and he married them off very well. He also was a friend of P.T. Barnum, who was a friend of this man who invented the revolving door. So at home, the point is,
yes.
we love it. It's been so useful recently. You know, we only want to self-isolate. We can have 3 of the family actually in the door.
Is the reason we don't have them on our homes because of too many terrible pet deaths?
No, it's just the house isn't big enough and we don't get that many visitors. They're very good in a tall building because what they do is they let much less air into the building and it avoids what's called the chimney effect. So what happens is cold air can be sucked in at the bottom when a door opens and warm air rises up through the building, and the use of a revolving door stops that. It's also more energy efficient. Weirdly, people tend to prefer to use a swing door when they can. They don't seem to like them.
I like to use revolving doors and pretend to be Wonder Woman. Because that's how she would change sometimes, and Superman did the same thing. And sometimes if you're feeling fancy when I'm in London where there's more revolving doors available, I'll just go in a building and then come back out and pretend to be Wonder Woman. I'll just do it. What I have to do is it's because I carry a suitcase with me all the time and I trip over the suitcase. That's the problem. I've got a suitcase that's bigger than me and it makes revolving doors quite difficult. But you just have to do it because then people look at you like you can't do a door.
Why don't you get out of the suitcase?
Yeah.
Carry it through the door and then get back in.
Much better.
Or get 2 little leg holes cut. How's that suitcase moving along the road?
Anybody think of other advantages of revolving doors?
You can go in and out at the same time.
That's exactly right. Yes, extra point for Alan. You can enter and exit at exactly the same time, so you can get more people in and out of the building.
How can you get more people in a revolving door than just if you had one big door?
But it's faster because people are coming in and going out at the same time. They haven't got to get in each other's way. And if you had a very large door, that's basically called an open space.
What you've got there is the garage.
Yeah. That's your up and over, isn't it?
Yeah. It's called a field.
Yeah, that's not really a thing.
I'm so sorry.
Now, how can this stop your cherries from popping? Here we go.
Whoa!
Oh, that's amazing.
Wicked.
Yeah, well,
Oh, yeah.
It was going really well. Did I kill you? Anyway, so how can this stop your cherries from popping?
A full-size one rather than that one.
Obviously not that.
I like the idea of like a 16-year-old who's asked to have a big house party for their birthday and their parents say, yeah, sure, no problem. But then they take all the curtains down and hire a helicopter and just circle the house throughout the whole bunch, checking that nobody loses their virginity all night.
cherries pop?
Well, they do. Why might they?
Is it something to do with the harvesting of
Well,
cherries?
it is sort of to do with that. They absorb water incredibly quickly, so just one heavy bout of rainfall can cause them to split, and that renders the entire crop absolutely worthless. So they could spray them with edible wax. It's not so nice. They could cover the whole crop in plastic. One of the ways to do it is to blow dry the fruit with a helicopter. It's very expensive, but it is the fastest way to dry a crop of cherries after unexpected rainfall. And if every hour counts because they are quite delicate, then the best thing to do is to hire a helicopter and use it as a great big sort of fan.
Wow.
I know. Also hired in sporting events, so they're used to dry cricket pitches, sometimes golf courses. Yeah. They're also used sometimes as fan heaters, helicopters. They fly over crops in cold weather, and so they push warmer air down onto the crops. Anybody want to see a helicopter carrying a rhino?
Yep.
Yeah, we love
Is
that.
that right? Who doesn't? OK,
Yeah.
let's have a quick look. This is what it looks like. There.
Oh, God.
Oh.
It's going to be upside down.
So it's being taken away from a poaching area. This is in South Africa in 2017, and they airlifted more than 200 rhinos like this. And actually, it is the best thing. If they had a net or rope around their torso, it would constrict their breathing. They're only in the air for about 10 minutes. They're fully sedated, does them no harm. Apparently, the hardest part is putting them back down gently. Making sure they're OK. And they do this with lots of animals. In 2019, they removed more than 700 mountain goats from a park in Washington State in a similar sort of way. They thrived, these goats, in this park. There they are, going off. Apparently, they thrived in the park because of human hikers, because they really love human urine. Because it's salty. So they're like...
Goats do?
Goats do, yeah. Ooh. They were carried to the Cascade Mountains in these special slings.
And were they trying to take the goats away from the urine?
They were damaging the local flora and fauna.
Oh, because they really like the urine.
Yeah,
OK, I got you.
Yeah,
I was just thinking, right.
Yeah, but...
I was concerned as to why they were moving the goats if they like the urine.
Yeah, I think mainly people should stop pissing on the path.
It's supposed to be good for you. Wasn't it Mahatma Gandhi who used to have a little pichet of urine, of his own urine?
Wasn't it the actress Sarah Miles used to advocate drinking your own urine?
Often confuse those two.
Yes, I know.
You know how old the word chopper is for a helicopter?
So that was going somewhere else.
I'm just throwing in a little bit of the only information I know on helicopters.
Was it your uncle, Sergeant Chopper?
Chopper Brandreth.
Chopper Brandreth, as he was known.
How did you guess?
Go on then, darling.
The Korean War, the helicopters in the Korean War made this noise, like chop, 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 chop.
Oh, so
And
50s,
yes.
1951.
So that's where it dates from. Whereas popping your cherry goes back to 1605.
I think it's been going on for longer than that. Now, for a more well-rounded question, can you draw a perfect circle? So let's have a go. You should have a board here, please.
Oh, okay.
I'd like one of you to hold the board and one of you to draw the circle. You may choose.
Would you like to draw?
Certainly, madam.
So if you could draw a perfect circle, please.
I think the trick is going to be the same as when you tell someone you're pregnant and just do it really fast.
Brilliant! Excuse me.
Oh, that's right.
Not mine isn't.
That is a perfect circle.
It's going to turn out that I'm a serial killer or something.
No.
They're not bad at all. One of Gyles's ancestors.
Dear old pumpkin Brandreth.
So there's a guy who is known as the world champion circle drawer. His name is Alex Overwyk. And he says the trick is to turn yourself into a human pair of compasses. So you should pivot around a part of your body. So perhaps you could use your elbow and turn like this, or perhaps you could use the heel of your hand.
I would say that's cheating. If you say to
No,
me...
but you're not using any mechanical device, you're simply using your body.
You look like you're having an arm wrestle with your imaginary friend. Come on!
So this guy, he is allegedly the world champion circle drawer. He's a maths teacher and he was teaching a class and they did a video of him drawing a circle and it sort of went viral.
Did he draw his own head originally?
Isambard Kingdom Brunel was rather famous for his ability to draw perfect circles. Although I have to say some of the ones in his notebooks are singularly bad. Why might they be so wobbly, do you think?
Was he on a piece of machinery when he was doing them?
Yeah.
He was on his locomotive.
He was on a train, absolutely. They were drawn on moving trains. He was testing the smoothness of rival railway lines.
Oh, wow.
So he would draw a near perfect...
Attention to detail.
I know, I love it. He does have some genuinely good circles in his notebooks. I have to say, though, if you look very, very closely, you can see a little dot in the middle.
Yeah, cheat.
Which suggests...
Compass.
A compass.
Oh.
Now, for a question about roulette. OK, I will give you 10 points to gamble on the next roll of this wheel. I can tell you that these are all black. These are the last ones that have come up, the last 5. What would you bet on now? Would you bet on black or red?
I think it doesn't matter.
That is correct. So why do you think that is? A lot of people would say red.
There's some gambler's fallacy, isn't there? There's some kind of gambler's myth. I grew up spending a lot of time standing outside Ladbrokes waiting for my dad on a Saturday morning. But there's a gambler's myth that if you've lost a certain number of times, you must be due a win.
Yeah.
But actually, whether it's black or red or whatever, what's gone before bears no relationship to the probability of what's going to happen next.
It's new every time, is it?
Well, the wheel doesn't remember what it did before,
Yeah.
so it's 50-50. It's red or it's going to be red or black. Well,
Could that then suggest, Sandy, I may as well not wear my lucky pants? if I'm doing something...
Give up.
No, today, for example, Andy, because I enjoy QI and I want to do well to impress you, I'm wearing my lucky pants.
Right.
If what you're saying is correct, about the fact nothing matters, I may as well not bother wearing these pants that I've had for 20 years.
I can't believe that the lucky pant fallacy has finally come clear to you.
And I think corduroy against the screen is right.
Yes, yes. Don't need pants, do you, Giles? Not at all. I'm afraid it is pretty much a 50-50 bet.
Does it matter?
No, I'm so sorry. Although it's not quite a 50-50 bet because there is also a zero, and that is how they actually make their money in the casinos. But you're absolutely right, darling, the gambler's fallacy. If the wheel has landed on black 6 times, 85% of people will bet on red.
I'm not allowed in casinos. Can I tell you why I'm not allowed in casinos?
Oh, you can't see over the table?
No, it's not.
You keep falling into the roulette wheel.
I went on a...
How's that Stetson going round and round and round that wheel?
I went on a spiritual journey to Tupelo, Mississippi to see where Elvis was born because I briefly believed that when Elvis died, his soul entered my body, but that's a different part of my life. Anyway, so
what's the point of sex after that?
It's like a day release.
It was my first time in a casino, like a proper casino. I had a credit card for the first time, and I ran up £10,000 in 6 hours.
No.
I mean, I was very young and I was very stupid and I was quite drunk. And after that, I decided I liked it so much I would never go back into one again because I loved every single second. They gave me lobster, they gave me beer. I thought it was amazing. And I just can't go back into one because I loved it.
You lost £10,000?
Yeah.
One night?
Yeah.
I had the complete reverse experience, but again, through ignorance. I was in Monte Carlo, so I went in and I put £10 on number 3 and it came up. So that's 35 times the win, right? So I didn't know you were supposed to take the money off the table, so I just left the money there. And they spun the wheel and it came up again. And the croupier said, "Madam, you have no idea what you're doing. Take your money and go home." So I did.
That was a good thing to say.
How much money did you win?
It's an enormous amount of money. I took a helicopter back to the airport. I was young and foolish.
I've only once played roulette, and in extraordinary circumstance. It was quite recently. My wife and I went for a wedding anniversary to Barbados. We were on the beach, sun was setting, wonderful golden sand, and this little old wizened lady came teetering along the beach towards us, and it wasn't until she got to about here that we realised it was actually Mick Jagger. This is a true story. And it turned out he was a really enthusiastic viewer of Countdown. So he knew who I was. And I obviously knew who he was, and my wife was quite excited. So anyway, we went off for the evening, and we went to a casino with Mick Jagger. And he very sweetly gave us the chips. And, of course, we lost, but it didn't seem to bother him, which was fantastic.
That's amazing.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Right. What's so un-British about a roundabout? Yes, darling.
It's French.
Yes.
Ah.
You will
French.
not be surprised to know that is a family story.
Yes, Charles.
One of my forebears was married to the Emperor Napoleon III of France, OK? The Emperor Napoleon III of France, in exile, lived in Southport. And this is true. And when he got back to Paris, when he was restored to become the head of, become Napoleon III again, he decided that Paris needed to be redesigned and chose a man called Haussmann to do it.
Yes, from whom we get Boulevard Haussmann and all those wonderful boulevards in Paris.
And he said, the design I would like is I've been in England in a place called Southport, and I would like it to look like Southport with these wide boulevards and these big circles. And that is why Paris looks like Southport.
Yes. But the actual roundabout was the invention of a French town planner who was called Eugénie Hénard at the turn of the 20th century.
Houseman had lots of people working for him, and...
Sorry, earlier, before the start of the show, Gyles told me that my key card for my dressing room would also work on the tube. Is that true?
I mean, so Houseman did do a marvellous job in making the big boulevards, but the actual, what's called a carrefour giratoire, the roundabout, was a French town planner who otherwise is, I think, not really known. Initially, you were allowed to go in any direction.
Now, see, I like that.
Which was...
I like that. Where are they coming from?
Hey, you start a riot.
Absolute chaos. So one of the largest was at the Arc de Triomphe, and it was a nightmare. And then Hénard suggested that maybe we should all go in one direction, and the rule was adopted nationwide. So that roundabout, it's 8 lanes wide. It's notorious. It's called the Étoile. And there's a legend that an American tourist once found themselves. So he was sucked into the innermost lane, and he kept going until he ran out of petrol because he simply couldn't. And so in 1907, British researchers were sent to observe it, and they copied it, and they installed the very first... Yes, darling?
You're going to find this almost impossible to believe. My father, this is getting really close now.
Yes.
My father was the legal advisor to the Automobile Association.
Right.
And a friend of Ernest Marples, who was the transport minister in the 1950s or 60s. My father went with Ernest Marples to help him open Britain's first roundabout in Letchworth, Newtown.
You are absolutely right.
Thank you. Thank you. 2.
I totally love this. So there's the Arc de Triomphe, which inspired Letchworth's...
Can you see the red car? This is my dad.
Can I just recommend to you, if nobody's gone to Letchworth, you know how we like an old museum?
Yeah, love it. Love it.
The Garden City collection, it's got the oldest toilet roll in the UK.
Oh.
It's 83 years old,
Lovely.
unused. Now, it's time to take a turn for the worse as we enter the head-spinning round that we call General Ignorance. Fast as we can, please. Fingers on buzzers. What can you put on your fish and chips in a chippy? Yeah.
Salt and vinegar.
No. Not salt and vinegar. Salt, yes, but not vinegar, because it's not vinegar. It's all labelled non-brewed condiment. By law, not only can it not be labelled as vinegar, you can't even put it in a receptacle that would usually hold vinegar.
Sorry, could you start...
Tell that to her on the right. You'll have
It's not vinegar.
It's not vinegar?
No, it's a combination of water and ethanoic acid and flavourings, and then it's watered down even further to be served to customers. It's cheaper, it takes less time to make, you can buy it in concentrated form.
and it's lovely... You have salt and sauce, do you?
No.
What is the sauce in the salt and sauce?
No, in Edinburgh they have salt and sauce. In Glasgow we have salt and vinegar because we're classy.
But you don't. What you actually have is salt and non-brewed condiment.
You're saying that all the bottles of vinegar I've ever owned never said vinegar on them?
No, if you buy it in a shop and it says vinegar in it, it is vinegar. If you say to the fish and chip person, please could you put vinegar on it, it isn't vinegar. It is, in fact, non-brewed condiment, but weirdly, people don't order it like that.
Well, they do from now on.
I know.
I'm absolutely shell-shocked by this news, Sandi. Of all the things you've ever told me on QI,
This is the one that's upset you.
This is the one that's really rocked my world.
Yeah, no, so you could put your vinegar that you bought in a shop. So you've got malt vinegar, and that is actually made... You ferment an ale from malted barley, much like red wine vinegar is actually made from red wine, although it has very little alcohol left in it.
Oh, I love red wine.
If you ask for vinegar on your fish and chips, you probably won't get it. How many trees are there on the planet compared to 40 years ago? Gyles.
Many more.
Many more.
Loads
many
more. Because they do them in China, don't they, Gyles?
According to a study in Nature 2018, trees now cover 7% more of the Earth's surface than they did in 1982. So that sounds good, and NASA says, you know, they've got images that show a 5% increase in the total area, but it's not a good thing. because it's China, fundamentally, that has done this very large afforestation project in the world. They've doubled their tree coverage. However, it's forestation for agricultural purposes.
Yeah.
So we are talking about single species of trees. We're talking about unnatural monoculture.
So you don't get an ecosystem, you don't get
biodiversity.
wildlife and insects. And...
Yeah. And also, lots of trees have been planted on unsuitable land, and they are basically dying. Who invented the battle technique of Blitzkrieg? Yes.
Someone Gyles is related to.
No.
Blitzkrieg Brandreth.
The Wehrmacht German army.
The Germans. No.
The French.
Russians.
British.
British.
It was us. It
Yes,
was us, pretty
it's
much. It was
British.
us.
We named it.
So it is a German word, Blitz, lightning, and Krieg, war. Very rarely used in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Definitely not used by the German leaders when the Blitzkrieg actually happened, when they invaded Poland in 1939, France in 1941. In fact, Hitler called it a completely idiotic word, ein ganz blödsinniger Wort. It's not often I quote Hitler. In fact, the Germans, the success of the Blitzkrieg completely surprised them. They thought it was rather a miracle. But it wasn't any new innovation. So what happens is there are short, sharp attacks on the ground with armoured vehicles, and then the air support comes in behind and kind of finishes things off.
Lots of tanks and lots of peaceful, undefended villages.
That's it. But this kind of tank and aircraft warfare, since it had been evolving since World War I, so it was not really a new thing. But the British and American press, they decided the advance by the Germans, which surprised everybody, including the Germans, had to be a revolutionary new kind of warfare. So they claimed that the man in charge of commanding the mechanised troops, General Heinz Guderian, was the father of the Blitzkrieg. And so lots of publicity in the press, and in the end, the soldiers on the ground were using it. But it was not a German invention at all. It was...
Just giving it a German name to make it sound...
That's it. But to make it sound like they had invented something that would... a new technique that would explain why the Allied forces were losing at that time. Now, what goes around comes around, and so we're back to revolutions. In which month do Russians celebrate this revolution? Yes.
October.
So it is called the October Revolution, you're absolutely right, but it isn't celebrated in October, it's celebrated in November. Why might that be?
Because it's my birthday and everyone has a party on my birthday.
Oh, did they shift the calendar?
They did shift the calendar, that's exactly it. So Russia was still using the Julian calendar, which was 13 days behind. The Bolsheviks under Lenin revolted on October the 24th and 25th, but it was, according to the rest of Europe, November the 6th and 7th.
That's my birthday, November the 6th.
Is it?
Yeah.
Lenin would have been so pleased.
Is that...
And with these revolutionary revelations, we come to the final scores. I can tell you, in last place with minus 14, it's Alan. In third place with 3 points, Susan.
Oh, yeah! Come on!
In second place with 4 points, Jessica. And with 5 points in first place because he is related to the man who invented first place. Gyles! To our guests, Jessica, Gyles, Susan and Alan. I leave you with these words from American actress Lee Grant, which expose the real problem with revolutionary ideas. I've been married to one Marxist and one fascist, and neither one would take the garbage out. Thank you and good